Do you know why some love stories feel calm but change everything inside you? Have you ever met someone who understands you without asking anything in return? What if the quietest connection becomes the most powerful story you ever witness? The evening was soft and quiet across the streets of Los Angeles. The sky was painted with warm orange light slowly fading into night. People were walking fast, chasing plans, chasing noise, chasing something undefined. But one man was sitting still, as if time had chosen to pause beside him. Keanu Reeves sat outside a small coffee place, holding a simple cup. His clothes were plain, his posture relaxed, his presence almost invisible to strangers. He watched people pass by, not judging them, just quietly observing their lives. There was something different about the way he sat there. He did not look bored, he did not look distracted, he looked present. As if he had learned something the world was still trying to understand. A few streets away, Sandra Bullock stepped out of her car slowly. She held a small bag in her hand, carefully protecting what was inside. Her face carried a calm expression, but her eyes held quiet stories. She was not heading toward cameras, or any event, or any attention. She was walking toward a place most people never chose to see. A small shelter stood at the end of the street, simple and unnoticed. Inside were people who had lost homes, but not their need for kindness. Sandra had been coming here for a long time, without anyone knowing. She never posted about it, never mentioned it, never wanted credit. For her, kindness was not something to show, it was something to live. As she walked, she noticed an old man sitting near the sidewalk. His jacket was worn, his hands were cold, his eyes looked tired. She slowed down, not thinking twice, not waiting for a reason. She gently placed the bag beside him and gave a soft smile. "Take care of yourself," she said, her voice calm and respectful. The man looked surprised, as if he had forgotten this kind of moment. He nodded slowly, holding the bag like it meant more than food. Sandra continued walking, not looking back, not expecting anything. Sometimes kindness does not need witnesses to be real. Later that evening, something simple changed everything. Sandra walked into the same small coffee place, looking for a quiet moment. The place was warm, filled with soft light and gentle background noise. She paused for a second as her eyes moved across the room. And then she saw him. Keanu was still sitting there, almost in the same position as before. His coffee had changed, but his calm presence had not. For a moment, she did not recognize him as a celebrity. She noticed something else, something harder to explain. He looked like someone who understood silence. She walked closer, her steps slow but certain. "Is this seat taken?" she asked softly. Keanu looked up, slightly surprised, then gave a small warm smile. "No, it is all yours," he replied, moving his cup aside. She sat down, placing her hands gently on the table. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke anything. But the silence did not feel empty. It felt comfortable, like two people sharing the same quiet space. "You do not look like someone who enjoys loud places," Sandra said calmly. Keanu smiled slightly, thinking before answering. "I think I never learned how to belong in loud places," he said. She nodded, understanding more than his words explained. "Good," she replied softly, "then I am not alone in that feeling." Their conversation started slowly, like a river finding its direction. They did not talk about work, or fame, or anything expected. They talked about simple things, real things, things people usually hide. They spoke about time, about how fast it moves without warning. They spoke about loss, not in detail, but enough to be understood. Keanu shared small pieces of his past, choosing his words carefully. He did not try to impress, he did not try to explain everything. He just spoke honestly, like someone who had learned silence first. Sandra listened without interrupting, her attention fully present. She did not respond quickly, she let his words settle before speaking. Because she knew what it meant to carry quiet pain. At one moment, Keanu looked outside through the glass window. People were still walking fast, chasing something they could not name. "I think people forget how to be gentle," he said quietly. Sandra looked at him, her expression thoughtful and soft. "Maybe they just need someone to remind them," she replied. He looked back at her, not surprised, just calm. "Maybe," he said, "and maybe that someone is already here." Their eyes met for a second longer than expected. Something shifted, something unspoken, something simple but strong. That night, they did not exchange numbers immediately. They did not make plans or promises or anything forced. They simply finished their coffee and walked out together. Outside, the air was cooler, the city lights slowly taking over. They stood there for a moment, unsure if they should say goodbye. Then Sandra spoke first, her tone natural and unplanned. "I come here often," she said, "maybe I will see you again." Keanu nodded slightly, a small smile returning to his face. "I think I will be here too," he replied. They walked in opposite directions, but something stayed behind. Not a memory, not a plan, but a quiet connection. Over the next few days, they met again. Not because they planned it, but because something pulled them back. Each meeting felt the same, calm, real, without pressure. They sat together, sometimes talking, sometimes just being present. Silence became their language, and it spoke more than words. One afternoon, Sandra decided to share something important. She invited Keanu to visit the shelter with her. He did not ask questions, he simply said yes. When they arrived, Keanu observed everything quietly. The small rooms, the tired faces, the simple acts of care. He did not stand apart, he joined in naturally. He served food, he listened to stories, he sat beside people. One old man spoke to him for nearly an hour without stopping. Keanu did not interrupt once, not even for a second. He listened like the story mattered, like the man mattered. After they left, Sandra looked at him with quiet curiosity. "You did not have to stay that long," she said gently. Keanu looked ahead, thinking for a moment before answering. "He needed someone to listen," he said softly. Then he paused, his voice becoming even more honest. "And maybe I needed that too." Sandra felt something change inside her at that moment. This was not just kindness, this was something deeper. This was someone who chose to care, even when nobody was watching. For the first time in a long time, she felt calm. Not temporary calm, but something steady and real. That evening, as they walked under soft streetlights, she spoke again. "Do you think life gives something back after taking so much?" she asked. Keanu looked up at the sky, his thoughts moving slowly. "I think life gives people," he replied, "and sometimes that is enough." She smiled, because she understood exactly what he meant. But something inside her also wondered one thing. What happens when two people who understand pain meet each other? Do they heal, or do they carry something new together? As they reached the end of the street, they stopped again. Neither of them wanted to say goodbye too quickly. Because this time, it felt different. But neither of them knew why. And just as that quiet moment settled between them, something unexpected was already beginning to change their story. Do you ever wonder why some connections grow stronger without any effort or force? Have you noticed how the simplest moments can quietly change the direction of your life? What if the person you just met slowly becomes the answer to your silence? Days started to pass in a way that neither of them expected. Nothing dramatic happened, nothing loud, nothing that demanded attention. But something was quietly building between them. Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock kept meeting, without making plans or setting rules. It always felt natural, like both of them already knew where to go. Sometimes it was the same small coffee place. Sometimes it was a quiet walk through empty streets. Sometimes it was just sitting side by side without saying anything. And strangely, that was enough. Their conversations slowly became deeper, but never heavy or forced. They shared thoughts, not to impress, but to understand each other better. One evening, Sandra noticed something about Keanu. He always listened more than he spoke. And when he spoke, his words were simple but meaningful. She realized that he never tried to change anything around him. He simply accepted things the way they were, and chose kindness anyway. That kind of calm was rare. And it made her feel safe in a way she could not explain. A few days later, Keanu invited Sandra somewhere different. It was not a fancy place, not something expected from someone like him. It was a small bookstore, quiet and almost empty. The shelves were filled with old books, carrying stories that most people had forgotten. They walked slowly between the shelves, reading random titles, sharing small smiles. "This place feels peaceful," Sandra said softly. Keanu nodded, running his fingers along the edge of a book. "Places like this remind me that not everything needs to be loud," he replied. She looked at him for a moment, then said something honest. "You make things feel slower," she said, "like time actually matters again." Keanu paused, slightly surprised by her words. Then he gave a small smile, but his eyes showed something deeper. "Maybe time always mattered," he said, "we just stopped noticing." They sat down in a corner, surrounded by books in quiet light. For a while, neither of them spoke. But this silence felt even stronger than before. It felt like understanding. That day, something changed again. Not in a visible way, but in a way both of them felt. They were no longer just two people meeting by chance. They were becoming part of each other's calm. Later that week, Sandra invited Keanu to the shelter again. This time, it felt different. Not like a visit, but like something they were now doing together. They worked side by side, helping people, listening, sharing small moments. One young boy approached Sandra, holding a broken toy in his hands. He looked unsure, like he did not know if he should speak. Sandra knelt down, bringing herself to his level. "What happened here?" she asked gently. The boy looked at the toy, then back at her. "It stopped working," he said quietly. Before Sandra could respond, Keanu stepped closer. He took the toy carefully, examining it like it truly mattered. "Give me a moment," he said with a soft smile. He sat down on the floor, trying to fix the toy piece by piece. The boy watched him closely, his eyes slowly filling with hope. After a few minutes, Keanu handed the toy back. "Try it now," he said. The boy pressed a button, and the toy started working again. His face lit up instantly, like something inside him came back to life. "Thank you," he said, his voice filled with happiness. Keanu simply nodded, as if it was nothing special. But Sandra watched everything. And she felt something shift again inside her heart. This was not about fixing a toy. This was about restoring hope in someone who needed it. As they walked out of the shelter that evening, Sandra spoke softly. "You always do that," she said. Keanu looked at her, slightly confused. "Do what?" he asked. "You make people feel seen," she replied. He looked down for a moment, thinking carefully before answering. "Everyone deserves that," he said, "even if they forget it themselves." Sandra did not respond immediately. Because she knew he was right. But she also knew something else. He was not just saying these things. He was living them. Over the next few days, something unexpected started happening. People began to notice them together. Not in a loud or dramatic way, but quietly. Someone saw them at the coffee place. Someone saw them at the shelter. Someone noticed the way they walked side by side. Small moments, slowly becoming visible. And with visibility came curiosity. Questions started forming in the background. Are they just friends? Are they working together? Or is there something more? Neither Keanu nor Sandra paid attention to any of it. Because what they had did not need explanation. It simply existed. One evening, as they sat together in the same quiet place, Sandra asked something unexpected. "Do you ever think about what this is?" she said softly. Keanu looked at her, not avoiding the question. "I think about it," he replied, "but I do not try to define it." She nodded slowly, understanding his answer. "Maybe that is why it feels real," she said. "Because we are not trying to force it into anything." Keanu smiled slightly, then added something important. "Sometimes the best things grow when you stop trying to control them." Their eyes met again, holding a moment that felt deeper than words. But just as everything felt calm and steady, something else had already begun to move quietly around them. Something they did not see coming. And this time, it was not coming from within. It was coming from the outside world. Do you know how quickly the world notices something that was never meant to be public? Have you seen how quiet happiness can suddenly attract noise without any warning? What if the most peaceful connection is tested by things outside your control? The calm rhythm of their days slowly started to change. Small moments that once belonged only to them were no longer invisible. Someone took a picture at the coffee place without them noticing. Someone shared a story about seeing them together at the shelter. At first, it was just whispers. But whispers do not stay small for long. Within days, people began talking more openly about them. "Are they together?" someone asked. "Is this real?" another person wondered. Neither Keanu Reeves nor Sandra Bullock paid attention to any of it. They continued their routine, unchanged, grounded in the same quiet moments. But the world outside was not as calm. One afternoon, Sandra received a message from someone she trusted. "They are talking about you everywhere," the message said. She read it slowly, not reacting immediately. For a moment, she looked at her phone, then locked it. She chose silence over reaction. Later that evening, she met Keanu at the usual place. He already knew. "You saw it?" she asked gently. He nodded once, calm as always. "Yes," he said, "but it does not change anything for me." She studied his face, looking for any sign of concern. But there was none. Just the same quiet presence she had come to trust. "What about you?" he asked. She took a slow breath before answering. "I am not afraid of people talking," she said. "I am afraid of losing what this is." Keanu listened carefully, not interrupting her thoughts. Then he said something simple, but strong. "We only lose this if we let the outside world define it." She looked at him, her expression softening. Because deep down, she knew he was right. But something else was coming, something neither of them expected. A few days later, a reporter approached Sandra outside an event. "Are you in a relationship with Keanu?" the reporter asked directly. The question was simple, but the moment felt heavy. Sandra paused for a second. Not because she did not know the answer, but because she knew this answer would change everything. She looked at the reporter, then said calmly, "We are just two people who respect each other." It was honest, but not complete. And the world noticed that too. That same night, headlines started spreading everywhere. Some people supported them. Some people questioned them. But none of those voices truly understood what they had. As the noise grew louder, something inside Sandra began to shift. Not fear, not doubt, but something closer to uncertainty. What if this changes things, she thought quietly. When she met Keanu again, she did not speak immediately. He noticed the change in her silence. "You are thinking too much," he said gently. She looked at him, almost surprised he understood so quickly. "Maybe," she replied, "but this feels different now." He nodded, accepting her feeling without denying it. Then he asked something unexpected. "Do you trust what we have?" he said calmly. She paused, then answered honestly. "Yes," she said. "Then nothing else matters," he replied. His words were simple, but they carried weight. And for a moment, everything felt steady again. But the real test had not even started yet. Because sometimes, the biggest challenges do not come from the world. They come from within. Do you know how fear can quietly grow even when everything looks peaceful outside? Have you ever felt unsure about something good just because it feels too real? What if the only thing standing in the way is your own doubt? Days passed, but the outside noise did not fade. It stayed, growing slowly, reaching places it never should have. Sandra tried to ignore it, but something had changed inside her. Not her feelings for Keanu, but her thoughts about everything around them. One evening, she chose not to go to the coffee place. It was the first time she did not show up. Keanu sat there alone, waiting longer than usual. He did not call, he did not message. He simply waited. Because he understood something important. Sometimes people need space, not questions. The next day, Sandra visited the shelter alone. She moved through the same routine, helping, listening, smiling. But something felt different. It felt incomplete. The young boy she met before looked at her and asked something simple. "Where is your friend?" he said. She paused, not expecting that question. "He will come," she replied softly. But even she was not sure when. That moment stayed with her the entire day. Because it made her realize something she had been avoiding. She was not afraid of the world. She was afraid of losing something she had just found. That evening, she finally went back to the coffee place. Keanu was already there. Sitting the same way, calm, patient, present. She walked toward him slowly, her steps carrying quiet hesitation. "I did not come yesterday," she said. He nodded gently. "I know," he replied. "You did not ask why," she said. He looked at her, his expression steady. "Because I trust you will tell me when you are ready," he answered. That moment broke something inside her. Not in a painful way, but in a way that released her fear. She sat down and spoke honestly for the first time. "I was scared," she said. "Not of people, not of attention, but of losing this." Keanu listened, letting her words settle fully. Then he spoke, slow and clear. "You cannot lose something that is built on truth," he said. "And what we have is real." She looked at him, her eyes soft but strong. And in that moment, her doubt began to disappear. Sometimes clarity does not come from answers. It comes from being understood. They stayed there longer than usual that night. Not talking much, but feeling more certain than ever. Because now, it was no longer just calm. It was commitment. And without saying it directly, they both knew. This was no longer just a connection. This was something deeper. Do you know when a simple connection turns into something you cannot walk away from? Have you ever felt a moment where everything becomes clear without any explanation? What if love is not loud, but quietly chooses you every single day? The days that followed felt different in a peaceful way. There was no more hesitation, no more uncertainty. Just two people moving forward without fear. One morning, Keanu invited Sandra somewhere new. It was far from the city, away from noise and attention. A small open space, surrounded by nature, quiet and untouched. They walked slowly, side by side, without rushing the moment. "This place feels different," Sandra said softly. Keanu nodded, then stopped walking. "Because it is," he replied. He turned toward her, his expression calm but meaningful. "I did not bring you here for a walk," he said. She looked at him, slightly surprised. "Then why?" she asked. He took a slow breath, not nervous, just present. "Because I realized something," he said. She waited, her attention fully on him. "I realized that peace is not a place," he continued. "It is a person." Her eyes softened as his words settled inside her. "And I found that peace with you," he finished quietly. There was no dramatic pause, no sudden movement. Just a quiet moment that felt complete. Sandra smiled, her expression filled with calm certainty. "I was afraid of this before," she said softly. "But now I am not." He nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. Because sometimes love is not about finding someone perfect. It is about finding someone who makes everything feel right. They stood there, not needing anything else in that moment. Because everything had already been said. And in the simplest way possible, they chose each other. Do you know why some endings feel like a beginning instead of a goodbye? Have you ever seen a story that does not need attention to be meaningful? What if the most powerful love is the one that stays simple and true? Their story did not become loud after that moment. It did not turn into something dramatic or complicated. Instead, it stayed exactly what it was meant to be. Real. They continued visiting the shelter together. They continued sitting in quiet places, sharing simple conversations. Nothing changed on the outside. But everything felt stronger on the inside. One day, the same young boy ran toward them with a bright smile. "Look," he said, holding the toy Keanu had fixed before. "It still works," he added proudly. Keanu smiled gently, nodding at the boy. "Good," he said, "take care of it." The boy looked at both of them, then asked something innocent. "Are you two always together now?" he said. Sandra looked at Keanu, then back at the boy. "Yes," she said softly. The boy smiled and ran away happily. Such a simple question, such a simple answer. But it meant everything. As they walked away, Sandra spoke quietly. "Funny how something so simple feels so important," she said. Keanu nodded, his expression calm as always. "The best things are usually simple," he replied. They continued walking, side by side, without rushing. Because they were not chasing anything anymore. They had already found it. Not in fame, not in attention, not in the world. But in each other. And sometimes, that is all a person needs.